Hey there, friends, coming at you with today's or this week's market wrap and sector watch with stocks to watch for next week. Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you on this fine, hot Saturday afternoon out here in Las Vegas. All right, let's get this rolling. Let's take a look at the markets first of all and see what's going on there. Very impressive. Nice consolidation and pop at the end of the week. NASDAQ making all-time highs, piercing the upper Bollinger Band, and getting away a bit away from the 50-day moving average. Now, could we see some type of a pullback? Possibly. We are piercing that upper Bollinger Band, or we could just see some consolidation and sideways action as we build out maybe another base to move from. But pretty impressive week in the NASDAQ. What was nice about this week as opposed to last week is we actually had some breadth in the market and some participation in small caps. We got a nice bounce back in IBB, which could continue next week, but we'll see how it plays out after the ASCO conference, which getting a boatload of news from the ASCO conference over this weekend. We'll see what that does for us on Monday. All right, let's take a look at the financials, which were relatively weak, coming up into a trend line, finding a little bit of resistance there. Did manage to climb back above the 50-day moving average, but still in a short-term downtrend. So we'll see what happens if financials can take out that trend line, but looking a little bit weak. Let's take a look at gold. Actually, gold did okay, looking like it's still bumping up into this longer term trend line, above the 200-day moving average, above all the shorter term moving averages. GDX, GDXJ, JNUG, Nugget really didn't follow or participate with gold. Now, I think if gold takes out that longer term trend line, then you will see some follow up or catch up within those minor space, right? Within the minor space. But let's see if gold can even take out that trend line first. IBB. So during the week, talking to the pro members, we talked about the fact that we could see a nice rip your face off rally bounce in the IBB, and we got that, right? We actually looked as though we were going to bust down below the 200-day moving average. We did briefly take it out. We pierced it, and then we had this lone wolf candle where we had a nice flush, and then we closed in the top portion of the candle back above the 200-day moving average, which then led to a continuation move for the next couple of days. So we could just come back up into this area at 300. I mean, we are up now 3 days in a row. We're at an area of potential price resistance, and then 300 has been a spot that we've had a really difficult time getting through. The problem with this is that by the time we get up here, we could be a little bit extended, right? So it wouldn't be a big shock if we were to get back up here and then find it to be resistance once again. We could do one of two things. We can either consolidate, right, and build out a little base to break through that 300, or pull back again. So right now we're not overbought, but we're approaching that. We'll see how we react once we get up to this 300 mark. Like I said, we're up 3 days in a row. Let's see if we get some follow through, but at 300, I wouldn't be shocked if we were to find some resistance there. All right, IWM, impressive bounce, but not an impressive close on Friday, right? So we pulled back to an area of potential price support right around 134.50 or so, bounced, had another, had a lone wolf candle there, and now back up into resistance, and it acted as resistance, right? So pulled back a little bit. Maybe we consolidate here. Let's try and hold on to this 139 as support. Maybe we consolidate out a little bit and then try to take out that 141. You know, it's been basically in a sideways range for a long time, right? Since November of last year, we've just been kind of moving sideways here. So to take out 141 with conviction would be a pretty big deal. Nice flat top breakout, but let's build up some energy before we do that. Let's build out some type of a base before we take that out. That would be a very healthy thing to have happen. All right, let's take a look at transportation, which has had one heck of a run. And you know, it's been a really nice move. There are some airlines within the space that are right up to areas of price resistance. JetBlue is one that comes to mind off the top of my head. Let's just take a look at that real quick. All right, 23 bucks has kind of been a big area. Look at every time we've gotten up here, it's acted as resistance. So, you know, if we take 23 bucks out, could be a nice move for JetBlue, more of a swing or long-term hold type play. 323 million shares in the float. But let's go back to this IYT. All right, so we had potentially a lone wolf candle right here, right, where we had a nice range, and then we closed in the lower portion of the candle after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 11 days being up days, right? So it did break through this area of price resistance. It is holding there as support. Maybe we don't see a pullback, although a pullback to 164 could be interesting. Maybe we see a consolidation here, right? But either way, it's overbought, little extended. You know, be healthy to see this pause, maybe build out a base before a continuation move. All right, let's take a look at Robo. I've been talking about this for several weeks. You know, consolidated and then actually broke out of that consolidation. I have been patiently awaiting a pullback in Robo, and it does not appear as though I'm going to get one. So now, you know, look, it's piercing the upper Bollinger Band. Maybe we drift back, we pull back, and we test 35 or 34.50 as support. Maybe that's an area to potentially get involved in the ETF. This is a long-term hold consideration. I'd much rather buy this. You know, if we got some fear in the marketplace and we pulled back, I'd much rather buy this on a pullback to the 50-day moving average potentially. Even better would be a pullback all the way back to this trend line, long-term trend line, right? That would be a better opportunity. Maybe right around 32 bucks or so. Close this gap on the daily. Come test that trend line. Test the $32 holla as support. I think it's pretty compelling there. But, you know, and I am going to be patient. I'm going to wait to see if that ever develops. If it does, you know, I'll look to jump on it then. But like I said, I may not get that opportunity. We'll see. SMH. Look at that bad boy. Just keeps on grinding. I mean, this has been an unbelievable run in SMH, and you know, part of that I think has to do with that robotics, right? A lot of these things need chips. So I mean, pretty impressive run. No signs of any weakness in the SMH. Looks like it just continues to grind higher. At some point, I imagine there will be a day of reckoning. I don't know when that day will be. One of the stocks that I looked at today was Qualcomm. I thought it was kind of interesting. It's not on my list. It's long-term hold potential. You know, things been beaten up pretty bad. You have to wonder, is all the bad news now priced in? I don't know. Something to consider. It has been a laggard within the space, and you know, if the SMH continues to grind higher, maybe, you know, Qualcomm does a little catch up. S&P 500 just barely piercing the upper Bollinger Band, making new all-time highs. You know, basically just broke out of a range that it's been trading in for let's let's say from what, February through May. So it's been, trading sideways really for quite a while, and we just took that out. Now, if we pull back, you look for 2400 to act as potential support. I want to see something here. I didn't look at this yet. So we have a couple of shippers. No, do we have shippers reporting? No, we have solar reporting. I do have a shipper on my list for this week, but that's still a sector that's been pretty beaten up. Let me take a look at ST. I'm gonna look at TAN real quick, which is the solar spec. Now we've got 3 solar names reporting this week. One of them I have on the list for a potential trading opportunity off of earnings, which happened to report Monday pre-market. TAN is consolidating right here at the 200-day moving average. Just reclaimed it. Kind of interesting. Maybe worth keeping an eye on TAN if we get some decent news out of the solar space with these earnings this week. Let's see. Volatility, there isn't any. No fear. No fear. But look, we've got some things coming up next week that I'll talk about in a minute when we take a look at the economic calendar. We've got some things coming up next week that could give us some volatility. So we'll look at that in a second here. Let me get through the rest of these. USO pulling back, even with OPEC talking, extending the cuts, talking about deepening the cuts, blah, blah, blah. Oil still can't find a bid, right? I mean, still struggling. And maybe it comes down here, we do a double bottom test and bounce. Maybe we come down here and we break through that. I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out. But oil and energy certainly has not been a very hot sector. Now, I will tell you that there are some oil and energy names that I currently do own and that I am looking to add to on significant weakness. WTI being one, MRO another. I don't think oil or energy names are going completely away. So I do think that if we get some kind of an overdone sell-off, there will be a potential snapback trade within that space. So worth keeping an eye on it. Dollar, not looking healthy, man. We kind of had a little bear flag thing going on here. We broke below the Bollinger Band, and then we just consolidated sideways back into the Bollinger Band, but then we broke down on Friday and look as though maybe we're heading lower. And the next area of potential support could be somewhere around this 2480 area. But, weak dollar, and, we should see strong commodities, right? We should see some strength in oil and gold, but it doesn't appear to be working, at least not for oil. Gold, it seems like that's working a little bit, but dollar is not looking good at all. I actually just got the death cross too, 50-day cross below the 200-day. So I think that's good for big multinationals though, weak dollar. Let's take a look at some individual sectors. Aerospace and defense, which is one of my favorite sectors out there, continues to grind higher. And actually it just broke out of a pretty good area of price resistance. It's just pierced the upper Bollinger Band. Maybe look for this to pull back to an area of support, or at the very least just consolidate a bit. But aerospace defense, I think, still looks like a pretty good sector to be involved in, and I think I have a couple of names on this week's list of stocks to watch that are in that space. Let's take a look at home builders. Home builders had a nice 3-day move, just broke over the trend line. Now working on trying to take out an area of price resistance. And a couple of names within the home builder space that I like. I actually tried to get Beezer home this week, and I actually had the perfect entry on it. It was going to be $12, and I decided to lower it to $11.50, and because it had broken below 12, I thought maybe we could get it an $11.50 area of support for a bounce, and actually 12 wound up being the area for it to bounce. Now we'll see if we get any follow through or continuation in that. What I could hope for here is that the home builder space stalls out a little bit, maybe consolidates, drifts lower, and brings BZH with it at least back to 12. Right now I think it's about $12.50, but home builder is actually looking pretty good. Building materials, flirting with an area of price resistance, just piercing the upper Bollinger Band. It is overbought. Maybe consolidate here at just below 54 bucks. Put in a nice little flag before trying to take that out, but looking pretty good in materials. Energy not looking good, as one would imagine, with oil pulling back, and likely won't look good until you see some kind of a bounce in oil. We already talked about financials. Industrials continuing to grind higher, although pierce the upper Bollinger Band, close in the lower portion of the candle. Let's see if we get maybe a little bit of a pullback there in industrials. Technology we already talked about. Utilities, crazy, grinding higher. Really nice move in utilities. Due for a pause or a pullback, right? I mean, this is up multiple days in a row. Maybe just consolidate a little bit, right? Build a little bit of a base, build up some energy, work off the overbought condition before moving higher. But utilities, pretty impressive move. Healthcare, really impressive move. Actually took out an area of price resistance on Friday. Overbought, out of the upper Bollinger Band. Could we see a pullback? Sure we could, right? We could see a pullback maybe to the $76 area where there's could be some price support. Maybe we just work our way back into the Bollinger Band. Don't necessarily have to have a big pullback, but consolidate, work our way back into the Bollinger Band before making the next move. Consumer discretionary, another one that's impressive. We've got several restaurants that are reporting next week, which could be, could be interesting for that space. One that I actually am pretty interested in is Play, which is Dave & Buster's. But even, this one, we just broke out over 91, which was an area of price resistance. We are overbought. Let's see if what was resistance winds up acting as support. Maybe we consolidate, build out a little flag, or pull back and test that as support. But consumer discretionary, pretty impressive. XME, metals and mining, like I said, not really participating along with gold, but I think if gold does take out that trend line, you're likely to see the miners maybe get a nice move with it. So oil and exploration, pretty weak, just like the XLE. And then retail did have a bounce on Thursday, and then a little bit of a pull on Friday when it bounced right into resistance, price resistance, just below the 50-day moving average. Maybe it flags out here before trying to move higher. I don't know. Still not one of my favorite sectors at all. Okay, so let's take a look. So next week for economic data, we've got, we do have some stuff going on. We've got PMI services, factory orders, ISM manufacturing. Let's see what else. We've got the JOLTS report. It's job openings. MBA mortgage applications, Gallup U.S. Job Index, petroleum status report, let's see, jobless claims, consumer comfort, and Fed balance sheet. Yeah, no, that's fine. So we've got some stuff here, you know, that could impact the markets, or give us, you know, some kind of a. I think most of that stuff, you know, will be on Monday, right? The main things that could impact the markets, but we also have a couple of things happening next week that could be disruptive, right? We've got James Comey, right? The FBI director is going to be testifying before a Senate Intelligence Committee, right? That's one thing that could create some volatility. European Central Bank meeting, like our Fed is having a meeting next week, and that could be disruptive. And then we also have the UK election, right? For a mandate for Brexit. So that could be disruptive for the market. So we do have some things outside of the U.S. That could impact the markets. And then we also have the director, FBI director. That's going to be a circus in itself. So, and then let's see, we've got some earnings. Let's take a look at the earnings. Oops. So JKS is the solar play that's reporting before the market opens. That there could be a day trade. There could be a trade there worth keeping an eye on. And then, as I've stated before, if you've watched my videos, the ones in black, I am interested in their earnings. I'm interested in their earnings. However, I'm not really seeing anything that makes me want to take a trade. Potentially after their earnings, right? Maybe after their earnings, like this Fred's could be interesting. It's at an area of potential price support. You know, if their earnings disappoint, you're probably going to lose that price support. If they surprise to the upside, could be a great bounce spot and something to keep an eye on. At home is one that I like, that has a decent setup. ONVO, which, you know, could be interesting. Hold on a second here. So these others with the black box, I'm interested. I want to see what their earnings are. Not so much for a trade. The ones with the green around them are ones that could potentially be trading opportunities, and we'll go over those in a second with the stocks to watch. All right, so bulls look. I mean, look, several index looking pretty bullish, right? Things looking pretty darn good out there. Nice to see some breadth and some participation from small caps. Hopefully that continues. Hopefully we don't get thrown off with some of this stuff that's going on next week in terms of you know, the Comey thing and all that. So plus we have ASCO this weekend, and we'll see how that impacts the biotech space, right? And I'll tell you, if you don't follow Adam Feuerstein on Twitter, I think that is a must follow. The guy knows his biotech stuff, and you know, before you go piling into some biotech off of news, make sure that he's not coming out and, you know, slamming the news before you go piling in, especially if it's a big gapper or something. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the stocks to watch for next week. NAO. This is a shipper, and I actually tried to get this on Friday, looking for an entry at about $1.12. And what got me looking at this, I mean, this is not a hot sector. It's not a hot space. There's a big gap to fill on the daily. Insiders have been buying a significant number of shares, and the average Share price is about $1.16, and they bought 3 million shares within the last several weeks or so. So a lot of significant insider buying, good volume spike on Friday, closed right at the 50 EMA. You know, look, if this pulls back to $1.05 or somewhere in that area, I am likely going to take a position in this for a swing. Potentially, you know, it could be a longer term swing, could be 2-3 weeks, who knows. But did get some volume on Friday, didn't get the follow through, closed right at an area of price resistance. So if I get some kind of a red to green, I may look to take a position in NAO. LXRX. This one had some news, I think, over the weekend here. LXRX. Spikes this one had some call volume activity right towards the end of the day. On Friday, this is the third day of the pop, just closed above the $15 holla. Could look for that to continue, although it does have the 200-day moving average just overhead, which acted as resistance on Friday. But stochastics are curled up, RSI is curled up. Pretty nice looking setup. Only 26 million shares in the float, 55% short interest on that one. So it can get squeezy if it gets some follow through over that 200-day. Worth having on the radar for a day trading opportunity. ARQL just reported some news over the weekend here. I find the chart to be a little bit compelling, testing the 200-day. Nice flag pattern. We'll see if this gaps up. If it gaps up too much on Monday, then it would be tough to take it. You don't want to chase this. Only got 42 million shares in the float. See what kind of volume it has in pre-market, but it looked like the news was fairly decent. See if it gets any follow through next week. And I think there was some insider buying in ARQL, but maybe I'm wrong. It looks like I'm wrong. DVAX, right after the close on Friday, got a big spike off of news. Let me see if it held that spike. All right, sorry, I got interrupted there, so I'm not sure where I left off on DVAX. I think I was checking to see if it happened to pop and hold that pop. Yes, it did. Okay, so this had some news after the close on Friday. It popped right up into $7.20. And if we put our right to the 200-day moving average as resistance. This has got 40 million shares in the float, 15% short interest. We'll see what it does pre-market. If this gets too ridiculous in pre-market, be tough to take it, right? Going to have a huge gap on the daily. If it pulls back, if it kind of hangs in the $7 area, and then pulls back to say 625, 620, 630, somewhere in that area, could be a potential bounce opportunity. Let's see, there's a pivot at 650 and 623, and then it looks like 606. So this one definitely worth watching for a potential day trading opportunity off of the news on. It's got a huge gap on the daily to fill, but off of the news on Friday, which looked to be pretty darn positive, but we'll see if it gets any follow through. So DVAX, day trade opportunity. LOXO, LOXO, also had some news this weekend, and I think Adam Foistein was actually fairly positive on this one. Now this has had a run up into the news, into an area of price resistance at $50. We'll see if we get some kind of a flat top breakout on this and follow through. Only 16 million shares in the float, 23% short interest. LPTX, looks like there was some news on this one. Now stochastics have crossed to the upside. It's at an area. This is a relatively new issue. Kind of a bear flag here on the daily time frame, and a itty bitty tiny float, or not float, well, yeah, float too, 3.9 million shares, and averages like 11,000 shares traded per day. So very thin name. We'll see if this gets any action in pre-market. It's below the 50-day moving average. Not a lot of historical data for reference on this one, but could be worth watching for a day trading opportunity if it has some significant volume for liquidity. ITI, now there's been a little bit of insider selling here, but a little bit of a bounce. These guys report this week. All right, this is one of the stocks that I had on the list. I think they report on Thursday. Hold on a second here. Let's take a look. Yeah, they report on Thursday after the close. This could move up into price resistance at 650, heading into that earnings report. If they report good earnings, maybe it takes that area out. And let me back this out to the weekly time frame here. Whoa. Let me back this out to the monthly time frame. Next big area of resistance, somewhere around $8. Only 23 million shares in the float. Maybe a day trading opportunity, depending on how earnings come out. If it takes out $6.50 with some conviction. ZIXI, which is one of the all right, ZIXI, so flirting with the 6 roll. It's been consolidating just under 6. Did close above 6, but piercing the upper Bollinger Band. Cybersecurity play. Not sure when they have earnings, but and make sure you check that out with all these stocks that I'm presenting today. Make sure they don't have earnings coming up. But got a little bit of action, some good volume on Friday. Potential continuation, maybe a red to green move. Wouldn't be surprised if it consolidated for a day or 2 or 3, and then moved, had a next move, hopefully higher. But in a nice uptrend, lower left, upper right, above all the moving averages, which are all curling up. Good space to be in. Palo Alto Networks just reported earnings. These guys may have earnings coming up, so make sure you check that. But pretty nice look on ZIXI. Could be a swing, could be a day trade. On a pullback to 595 or so, maybe that's a good place to take it for a swing. But definitely on my radar. STKL, hot looking daily. Insider buying, lower level, $8.49, 15,000 shares. Nice pop, consolidation, and got a little bit of action on Friday. 85 million shares in the float. I think, I'm not sure if these guys report or not this week. Maybe not. But pretty nice looking setup on the daily here, right? Looking for it to take out the $10 holla. Could be a day trading opportunity, could be a swing opportunity. Worth definitely having on the radar. Nice looking setup technically. JK Solar. This is the one that reports Friday before, or Monday before the open. Look for it to take out this trend line. It's right on top of the 50-day moving average. It's oversold. Stochastics curling up. They report a good number. We'll see if it gaps, but not a bad looking setup here. Just had the 50-day cross above the 200-day, so you got the golden cross. Pretty interesting setup heading into earnings. KTOS is one of the defense plays that I really do like, and actually, I was looking to try and get in this at about $8. It gapped up through there. Didn't want to chase it, and it held the gap and just kept right on grinding higher. Now it's pulled back a little bit, worked off the overbought condition, got stochastics curling up, It's in a hot space, and I think you just had the CEO pick up 10,000 shares at 10.57. Not a big insider buy, but still an insider, good, decent size. Looking for a trend line break. This is not a very thick stock, 71 million shares in the float, 10% short interest. I think this could be a swing or maybe a day trade opportunity. Pretty sweet looking setup there on, actually, hold on a second, 11 hours ago. What do we got? Okay, that looks like a grant of some sort. Okay. I like KTOS. I like the space, and I like this particular chart. It's been consolidating. Look for a trend line break, and maybe we get a test of 1050 or so. Maybe you can get all the way up here and test the $12 holla. LAYN, now this is not a great looking chart. It's actually below the 50-day. It's below the 200-day, which is actually looking as though it's starting to curl to maybe start heading down. It was consolidating up and around the $11 range. It's pulled back, and the reason why I have this on here, it reports Thursday after the close. It's at an area of potential price support, and I'm interested in this one not only for its results, but for the sector overall, engineering and construction. And if you could take out this trend line, take out $8 with some conviction, maybe get a nice little pop. It's only got 15.6 million shares in the float, 21% short interest. Now, if it breaks below 7 off of bad earnings, you know, this is going to get ugly for LAYN. But I think it's worth keeping an eye on for a potential trend line break off of a good surprise. If you know, look, they have to beat and they have to raise guidance, right? And then maybe you get a nice pop and a potential squeeze on this name. AVAV, another aerospace and defense name. Nice tight consolidation, and then broke out on Friday, and this is at an area of potential price resistance here. And I believe that these guys report. They might report earnings. I'm not sure. I think they might report earnings this week. Maybe not. But nice breakout of a little tight consolidation there. Second day of the move. Maybe you get a third day. Let's back this out to the weekly time frame. It's a potential flat top breakout here, right? I mean, this seems to be a pretty big area. And only 18 million shares in the float, 13.5% short interest. So could get some action. It's worth keeping an eye on for a potential follow through day. AGRX, this is one that was pointed out on Friday. I'm looking now for this to take out potential flat top breakout here. Maybe get a 4 test, take out the $4 holla, and maybe we get a gap fill up to the 200-day right around $4.78. Insider buys within this range, 368 to 351, 53,000 shares and 10,000 shares on May 11th. So we got a little lone wolf candle here, right? Pulled back, closed up in the upper portion of the candle. Now grinding higher. So we'll look for a potential continuation on that one. BZH, I talked about this already earlier. $12 is looking like it's an area of decent support. So it's still flirting with this trend line. Let's see if maybe it pulls back to this 1180. If it does, I will likely take a starter position there in my long-term hold portfolio. This will be the second time I've traded this stock this year, and if it breaks over 1260 with some conviction, reclaims the 50-day moving average, stochastics are just curling up to the upside. We saw what the home builders were looking like. This could get some follow through and maybe go back up and retest that $14.50 to $15 area. Live Nation, this is got a beautiful look on a daily chart. It's lower left, upper right. Nice consolidation, testing all-time highs. So Live Nation is testing all-time highs, looking for it to. It actually broke over this little flag pattern. Not sure when they report earnings, but really good-looking chart here. It's overbought. You know, potentially this is probably a better swing or long-term hold, and ideally would be an ideal entry on it. Could be somewhere around 32.50 or so. Not sure that we'll get that opportunity. This could continue to move higher, but it is piercing the upper Bollinger Band, so at the very least, maybe it consolidates a little bit. And but this is really a good-looking long-term hold or swing consideration, as it is in blue sky territory. All right, AGEN. I'm not sure if they are reporting or anything here at ASCO, but there's been some insider buying at 335. Stochastics have curled up. Biotech space is, if it heats up and gets some of these small bios going, this one maybe gets some participation in the space. Looking for it to maybe go back up and test somewhere around the $4 holla. MYGN, I had this on the list on Friday. They reported some news right after the close. Looked like positive news. It just filled the gap, or came close to filling the gap after a big gap up, pulled back to the 50-day and bounced. Looking for some follow through after that news on Friday after the close. Break the trend line. I think potentially you come back up and test this 23.50 area. ONVO, which is the one that's reporting Wednesday after the close. I have this on here mainly because, look, it's below a declining 200-day moving average, which makes it not all that compelling. However, if they report good earnings, I think they have a new management team there. They report good earnings, and take out that 200-day, could get a nice little pop. This only got 85 million shares in the float, 16% short interest. Take out the trend line, take out the 200-day. Could be a day trading opportunity in there somewhere. DTRM. All right, so I need to emphasize this is a very tiny float stock. 8.4 million shares in the float. Only traded 4,600 shares on Friday, right? And it's a little wild, but it is in an uptrend, right? Lower left to upper right. It's hanging out right here at the 50 EMA, coiled up a bit, and they report on Thursday after the close. So, if they report good earnings and give good guidance, it does have days where it does 100,000 shares in volume. Maybe we get a decent volume day and a potential day trade opportunity out of DTRM, but you have to play that size appropriate, right? You don't want to go buying 100,000 shares of this thing. You'll have a very difficult time getting out. So DTRM, though, I think worth having on the radar for potential day trade. BBRY, had this on the pre-market prep for Friday. I think this one becomes really compelling at around $10.50 for a swing or long-term hold. Been consolidating after the big pop. This one is definitely worth having on your radar for a longer-term hold play because it's such a thick stock, but pretty good-looking setup there on BBRY. ELGX had some news this weekend at ASCO. CEO just bought 25,000 shares. Bought 25,000 shares on May 29th. And, it's flirting with the $5 holla. It's got a gap to fill. Could get up into the $6 range, where we've got the 50-day simple moving average, 650. We'll see if this gets any kind of gap on Monday. 72 million shares in the float, 25% short interest. Could be some squeezability there. And then ATHM, this one is reporting Wednesday before the open. Nice looking setup on the daily. All right, sorry about that. I had another interruption, but I'm back. So nice consolidation on this ATHM. Let's go back and take a look at the weekly time frame. Now, at an area of potential price resistance right here. See how it acted as support, acted as resistance. A little overbought, even on the weekly time frame there. Pretty nice tight consolidation though. Potential breakout there. If it winds up failing though, you're probably looking at a pullback somewhere to the 50-day moving average around $38, maybe even 36, where you got some price support, potential price support down in that area. But good looking setup technically. All right, that is my list of stocks to watch for next week, as well as my take on the markets. We could have some things that create some volatility, give us a little bit of pullback, but for now, the bulls are still in control. This continues to be one of the most hated bull markets in history. So let's see what next week brings. Be careful trading. Make sure you have a plan for each and every trade. Know your risk reward. I hope you found something of value in this video. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Have a fantastic weekend. And if you like what I do here, consider becoming a member over at Alpha Wolf Trading. I've said it a million times. We have a great group of people. And the price of admission is, for what you get, I think is ridiculously inexpensive. Okay, have a fantastic weekend. I'll see y'all next week. Good luck trading and best of success always.